You wake up in the morning and immediately grab your phone. You scroll through TikTok for 20 minutes before you even get out of bed. You go to school or work or whatever it is you do during the day. You come home. You sit down. You open your laptop or your phone again. And then you just exist. You scroll. You watch. You consume. Hours go by and you haven't really done anything meaningful. And then it's midnight and you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling wondering where the entire day went. Wondering why you feel so empty. Wondering why you can't seem to get yourself to do the things that you know you should be doing. You tell yourself that tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow you'll wake up early. Tomorrow you'll start that project. Tomorrow you'll go to the gym. Tomorrow you'll be productive. But tomorrow comes and nothing changes. And the cycle repeats, day after day after day. And eventually you start to believe that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that you're just lazy, that you don't have enough discipline, that everyone else seems to have their life together, and you're the only one who can't figure it out. You see people your age online starting businesses, getting in shape, traveling the world, building audiences, making money. And you're sitting in your room refreshing the same 3 apps wondering why you can't even get yourself to start. And it eats at you. Quietly, in the background, this feeling that you're falling behind, that you're wasting your potential, that you're lazy and there's nothing you can do about it. But I want to tell you something that I genuinely believe with everything I have. You are not lazy. You're lost. And there is a massive difference between those two things. See, laziness implies that you have a clear direction, a clear goal, a clear path forward, and you're just choosing not to walk it. Laziness means you know exactly what you need to do, but you're actively deciding not to do it because you'd rather sit around and do nothing. But that's not what's actually happening with most people. Most people don't have a clear direction. They don't have a goal that genuinely excites them. They don't have a path that they actually believe in. They're not choosing to sit still. They're paralyzed because they have no idea where to go. And that's not laziness. That's being lost. Think about it like this. Imagine you're dropped in the middle of a forest with no map, no compass, no trail, no phone, nothing. Just trees in every direction as far as you can see. What would you do? Would you just start sprinting in a random direction hoping it leads somewhere? Probably not. You'd stand still. You'd look around. You'd try to figure out where you are and which direction might lead to something. And if you couldn't figure it out, you'd probably just stay where you are. Not because you're lazy, but because moving without direction feels pointless. And that's exactly what's happening to millions of people right now. Millions of teenagers. Millions of young adults. Millions of people staring at their phones feeling stuck. They're standing in the middle of a forest with no map. And society is screaming at them to just start walking. Just work harder. Just be more disciplined. Just get up and grind. But nobody is helping them figure out which direction to walk in. Nobody is giving them the map. And then we wonder why an entire generation feels lost, unmotivated, and unable to start. I know this feeling because I lived in it for a long time. Before I started making money online, before this channel, before any of it, I was the most lost person I knew. I would come home from school every single day, sit in my room, and just waste hours on my phone doing absolutely nothing productive. I wasn't working towards anything. I didn't have goals that excited me. I didn't have a vision for my future that made me want to get up in the morning. I was just existing, going through the motions. School, home, phone, sleep, repeat. And everyone around me just assumed I was lazy. My parents would tell me to stop wasting time. My teachers would tell me I wasn't living up to my potential. And I internalized all of that. I genuinely believed that I was just a lazy person. That some people were born with motivation, and I wasn't one of them. That discipline was some genetic trait that I just didn't have. And that belief made everything worse. Because when you believe you're lazy, you stop trying. Why would you start something new if you're just going to give up anyway? Why would you set goals if you're just going to fail? The label of laziness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe you're lazy, so you act lazy, which confirms the belief, which makes you act even lazier. And the cycle spirals downward until you're stuck so deep in it that getting out feels impossible. But here's what actually changed for me. And it wasn't some magical moment. It wasn't a motivational video that made me suddenly get my life together. It was a slow realization that happened over months. I started to notice that I wasn't lazy about everything. There were certain things that I could do for hours without even thinking about it. When I was editing a video, I could sit at my computer for 5 hours straight without checking my phone once. When I was learning about how the YouTube algorithm worked, I would read articles and watch breakdowns for entire weekends. When I was studying a successful creator and trying to figure out what made their content work, I was locked in, completely focused. No distractions, no procrastination, just pure engagement. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't a lazy person. I was a person doing the wrong things. The problem was never my work ethic. The problem was never my discipline. The problem was I was trying to force myself to care about things that didn't matter to me. School made me feel lazy because I didn't care about most of the subjects. Homework made me feel lazy because it felt pointless. Traditional goals like getting good grades and going to a good college didn't excite me because I couldn't see how they connected to anything I actually wanted. But the moment I found something that genuinely interested me, something that I could see a real future in, the laziness disappeared. It wasn't even willpower. I didn't have to force myself. I just wanted to do it. And I think that's the key that most people are missing. There's this psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who studied something called the flow state. And if you've ever been so locked into something that hours felt like minutes, that's what flow is. Complete immersion in an activity where you lose track of time and everything else fades away. And here's the interesting part. His research found that people don't enter flow states when doing things they're forced to do. Flow happens when the activity matches your genuine interests and provides the right level of challenge. Not too easy that you're bored. Not too hard that you're frustrated. But right in that sweet spot where you're fully engaged and pushing yourself just enough. And think about how the opposite that is from how most of our lives are structured. School forces you to sit through subjects you didn't choose. Jobs force you to complete tasks you don't care about. Society forces you to pursue goals that were chosen for you before you were even old enough to know what you actually wanted. And then when you can't summon the motivation to do these things, everyone calls you lazy. But you're not lazy. You're just doing the wrong things. You're trying to find flow in activities that were never going to provide it. And that mismatch between what you're doing and what you're meant to be doing is what creates that feeling of being stuck, that heaviness, that inability to get started. It's not a discipline problem. It's an alignment problem. Now I know what some of you are thinking. That sounds nice, but I can't just do whatever I want. I have school. I have responsibilities. I can't just quit everything and chase my passions. And yeah, you're right. I'm not saying you should drop all your responsibilities and go live in the woods painting watercolors. That's not realistic. What I am saying is that you need to find something outside of your obligations that gives you that fire. Something that you're genuinely excited about. Something that makes you want to get up in the morning. Because right now, a lot of you are going through life with nothing to look forward to. And that's why you feel lazy. You don't have anything pulling you forward. You're just being pushed by obligations. And being pushed by obligations without being pulled by something you actually want is the fastest way to burn out, shut down, and convince yourself that you're a lazy person who will never amount to anything. So how do you find that thing? How do you go from being lost to having direction? Well, it starts with something that most people skip because it sounds too simple. You need to start trying things. I know that sounds obvious. But most people who feel lost haven't actually tried that many things. They've done what they've been told to do. Go to school. Get good grades. Maybe join a sport or a club. But they haven't explored outside of the very narrow path that was laid out for them. They haven't experimented with creating content, or learning to code, or studying psychology, or trying photography, or writing, or building things, or trading, or designing, or any of the thousands of things that exist outside of the traditional path. And you can't find your direction if you haven't explored the territory. You can't discover what excites you if you've only ever done what you were told to do. So the first step is to just start trying random stuff. Watch a YouTube tutorial on video editing. Download a free coding app and mess around with it for an hour. Start a journal and write whatever comes to your mind. Try cooking a meal from scratch. Sign up for a free online course in something that sounds even slightly interesting. Most of these things won't click, and that's fine. The point isn't to find your passion on the first try. The point is to expose yourself to enough different things that eventually something sticks. Something will feel different. Something will make time disappear. And when that happens, pay attention, because that's your compass. The second thing you need to do is stop consuming so much and start creating more. And I mean this very seriously, because I think this is one of the biggest reasons our generation feels so lost and unmotivated. We spend an insane amount of time consuming content. The average teenager spends over 7 hours a day on screens outside of school. 7 hours. And most of that time is spent passively scrolling through content that someone else created. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Netflix. Just an endless stream of other people's thoughts, other people's lives, other people's achievements. And the more you consume, the worse you feel about yourself. Because you're watching people do things while you do nothing. You're watching people build things while you scroll. You're watching people live interesting lives while yours feels boring and flat by comparison. And this constant consumption creates a really toxic cycle. You feel bad about yourself, so you scroll to feel better. But scrolling makes you feel worse, so you scroll more to numb that feeling. And before you know it, you spent 4 hours on your phone and you can't even name a single video you watched. That's not living. That's existing on autopilot. But here's the thing. The moment you start creating instead of consuming, something shifts. It doesn't matter what you create. Write something. Build something in Minecraft. Film something. Design something. Draw something. Record yourself talking about your thoughts. Anything. The act of creating gives you a sense of agency, a sense of control, a sense of purpose that consuming can never provide. Because when you create, you're putting something into the world. You're making something that didn't exist before. And even if it's terrible, even if nobody sees it, even if it's the worst thing ever made, you made it. And that feeling of making something is addictive in the healthiest way possible. It's the opposite of scrolling. It fills you up instead of draining you. I think a lot of the emptiness that people feel comes from this imbalance between creation and consumption. We're consuming 10 times more than we create, and that ratio is destroying our sense of self-worth and our sense of direction. So flip it, even if it's just a little bit. Spend 1 hour less scrolling and 1 hour more creating, and see how it changes the way you feel. The third thing, and this is important, is to stop comparing your progress to other people's highlight reels. I fell into this trap hard when I was feeling lost. I would go on social media and see kids my age who already had thousands of followers, who were already making money, who seemed like they had everything figured out. And it made me feel like I was so far behind that catching up was impossible. But here's what I didn't see. I didn't see the 2 years of failed content they made before anything worked. I didn't see the 15 channels they started and abandoned. I didn't see the nights they stayed up until 3 a.m. editing a video that got 40 views. I didn't see the self-doubt, the frustration, the moments where they almost quit. All I saw was the success. And I compared my behind the scenes to their highlight reel. And that comparison destroyed my motivation before I even started. The truth is, everyone you see who's doing well right now was exactly where you are at some point. Lost, confused, unsure, struggling to find their direction. The only difference is that they started. They tried something. They failed. They tried something else. They failed again. And they kept going until something clicked. They didn't have some secret advantage. They didn't have more talent or more discipline. They just started before you did. And the gap between where you are and where they are is not as big as you think. It's just a few months of consistent effort. That's it. Now I want to talk about something that nobody mentions when they talk about motivation and productivity and getting your life together. And it's the role that your environment plays in how you feel. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that our generation feels more lost than any generation before us. We're growing up in a world that is fundamentally disorienting. We have infinite information but no wisdom. We have infinite options but no guidance. We have infinite connection but no community. We can talk to anyone in the world, but we feel lonelier than ever. We can learn anything online, but we don't know what to learn. We can become anything, but we don't know what to become. And this paradox of infinite possibility is actually paralyzing. Because when you can go in any direction, choosing one feels impossible. What if you choose wrong? What if there's something better? What if you waste your time? So you choose nothing. You stay still. And you feel lazy for not moving, even though the real problem is that you have too many options and no framework to evaluate them. Previous generations didn't have this problem. Your parents probably had 3 or 4 career paths to choose from. Go to college, learn a trade, join the military, or work at the local factory. Options were limited, but at least there was clarity. Now you can be a content creator, a software developer, freelance designer, a day trader, an influencer, a remote worker for a company in another country. The options are literally infinite. And nobody prepared us for how overwhelming that would feel. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. If you've been feeling stuck, unmotivated, and unable to get yourself moving, stop blaming yourself. Stop calling yourself lazy. Stop comparing yourself to people online who seem like they have it all figured out. Nobody has it all figured out, especially not at our age. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not missing some motivation gene that everyone else has. You're just lost. And being lost is temporary as long as you start moving. It doesn't matter which direction. Just start. Try something. Anything. Create something today. Put your phone down for 1 hour tonight and do something with your hands or your brain that produces something instead of consuming something. Write down 3 things that sound even slightly interesting to you and commit to trying one of them this week. Stop waiting for motivation to show up at your door because it won't. Motivation doesn't come before action. Action comes first and motivation follows. You don't feel like going to the gym until after you're already there. You don't feel like working on a project until you're already 20 minutes into it. The starting is the hardest part. And once you push through that initial resistance, everything gets easier. I promise you that. I spent 2 years of my life feeling like the laziest person on the planet. 2 years of thinking something was wrong with me. 2 years of watching other people do things while I did nothing. And then I found something that mattered to me, something that excited me, something that made me want to wake up early instead of staying in bed scrolling. And once I found that thing, everything changed. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually, piece by piece, the fog lifted and I started to see a path forward. And you will find that too. It might take a week. It might take 6 months, but you'll find it. And when you do, you'll look back and realize that you were never lazy. You were just waiting for the right thing to come along. So stop being so hard on yourself. You're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. You have so much time ahead of you. You don't need to have everything figured out right now. You just need to start exploring, start creating, start moving, and trust that the direction will reveal itself along the way. If this video resonated with you, if something in here made you feel even slightly better about where you are right now, then drop a comment and tell me about it. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me what you're feeling. Because I guarantee there are hundreds of other people watching this video who feel the exact same way, and reading your comment might be exactly what they need to hear. And if you want to keep having these conversations, consider subscribing. I'm going to be making more videos like this every single week, talking about life, money, purpose, growing up, and everything in between, all over Minecraft gameplay, because honestly, there's no better way to talk about this stuff. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.